Hey everyone, this is Chris DeFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode of Shift Break is brought to you by the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer from Voga Coffee, one of the most revolutionary pieces of equipment to come out in a long time in the coffee world because its SCA award-winning technology gives us unprecedented control over a vast array of flavors in our coffee, extracting things that you didn't even think possible, and ultimately giving you control over how your coffee is expressed. I mean, it really upgrades batch brew coffee like no other piece of equipment I have seen, and it is catching on rapidly around the world. Go to groundcontrol.coffee to find out more about the Cyclops Brewer. It not only makes amazing batch brew coffee, but also tea, batched iced lattes, batched cold brew. It's beautiful to look at, easy to train your staff on. So if you're looking to upgrade your quality, your versatility, and just get on the next level with your coffee program, then I highly suggest you get a Ground Control Cyclops Brewer for your store. Again, to find out more information, go visit them at groundcontrol.coffee. Today's episode is also brought to you by La Marzocco. It's been making espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927, and today the tradition of innovation and quality and dependability is going as strong and stronger than ever. I mean, La Marzocco is part of the fabric of specialty coffee because of trust. Machines like the KB90 machine with the straight-in locking portafilters for ergonomics, the auto flush for increased cleanliness, built-in scales for consistency. That's just one example of many machines that La Marzocco offers to help your coffee business thrive. And they are available to help you get the right machine for your shop. All you need to do is reach out to one of their salespeople by emailing info@lamarzocco.com. I would encourage you to reach out to them and also check out their website, lamarzocco.com. All right, everybody. So today I wanted to tackle a question that you get often when it comes to opening a coffee bar, and that is the question of, do you need experience in coffee, in working in a coffee bar, to be successful in opening a coffee bar? And this question is kind of complicated, but kind of not. I mean, the answer is basically yes and no. The reason why it's a little complicated is that we have the definition of need to define. So the question really implies, will you fail at running a coffee bar if you start one and don't have any experience? And I think, obviously, the answer to that question is no. That's not a bygone conclusion. There are a lot of people who open coffee bars who've never worked in coffee before, and I would wager that it's probably the majority of coffee bars that are started. And I have no data to back this up, but it's likely that some of the most successful brands out there, or the ones that are still with us that have lasted a long time, a good majority of those are started by people who didn't have coffee experience. And that is a good thing, I suppose. You know, that's good news for people who don't have experience in coffee but want to start a coffee bar. Now, that might be where it ends for somebody. They say, look, this person didn't have any experience and they opened a coffee bar and they're completely fine. The problem with anecdotal evidence like that is when you say they're completely fine or they succeeded, what you're ignoring or what you can't even really assess is what it took to get to that point of success and whether or not they would have been better off or at least helped by experience before starting. You're saying, well, they were successful is kind of like saying, and maybe this is a bad analogy, but it's like somebody saying, you know what, I had an uncle, he lived to be 96, he smoked and drank every day. And so obviously smoking and drinking is therefore fine. And we won't touch the subject of smoking and drinking, but the point is that is a fallacious argument. You can't use that argument to therefore qualify every situation that lines up because it's different for everybody. Okay, so the question really, instead of do you need experience before you open a coffee bar, should be, what can you stand to gain from having experience, or even what can you stand to lose by having experience, and vice versa. What do you stand to gain by having no experience, and what do you lose? Now, the argument for what you lose by having experience or what you gain by not is, a little bit weaker, I think. Generally, my opinion is that if you can get experience, you should. you should absolutely pursue it. And I'm kind of perplexed a lot of times when it comes to people having an aversion to getting some kind of experience purposefully as a way to learn about the industry that, supposedly you're going to spend the rest of, the next 5 to 10 years in. If you're planning to open a coffee bar and see it become fruitful and grow it to the capacity that I hear a lot of people tell me they want to grow to, 5, 10 stores, or a roastery, all that stuff, that is a long haul. That is going to be what you eat and drink and sleep and breathe every day of your life. But somehow, in the beginning, it feels like, oh, I can't do that because that's too involved. But you're about to get really involved. Drink from the fire hose, so to speak, and there is a perverse kind of nobility that people associate with entrepreneurship that makes the drinking from a fire hose thing, or the, wrecking your mental health and physical health, somehow worth doing. And I honestly don't get it, because you would like to be a little bit more prepared, I think, for what's about to come your way. And that would lead to a little bit more success, and have a taste, just a little taste of what it might be like to work in a coffee bar goes a long way. I'm right on the same page with people like Colin Harmon, who wrote that fantastic book, What I Know About Running Coffee Shops. You should get a job in coffee. That's just my opinion. I recommend experience as a blanket statement without the belief that if you don't have experience, you will fail. I don't believe that at all. Like we said in the beginning, that's just not true. But will it be better for you to get experience? Probably. Probably, because you will at least put hand to portafilter and clock in and clock out and experience these things for yourself. And actually, a lot of people who wanted to start a coffee bar, who ended up working first in the coffee industry, realized that they had no idea what they were actually signing up for and changed their plans. Now, you might be fearful of that. You might say, you know what, I don't want to know what I'm about to experience, because if I knew, I wouldn't do it. And I've heard a lot of people say that, and there have been a few Founder Fridays that have said that. So there's a vote for no experience right there, where it says, you know what, ignorance is bliss. I just want to follow my passion and jump right in. And you can totally do that. And you're going to make maybe decisions that you wouldn't have made if you had experience, but maybe they're more bold decisions. And later on, you'd say, you know what, we were young and stupid, and we made all these mistakes because we didn't know what we were doing. But we wouldn't do it any other way. So I will definitely give you that. But my belief is, for every person who is a success story in saying, you know what, we made a lot of dumb decisions, it was really hard, we didn't know what we were doing, we just jumped right in, there's a lot more people who do that and are not successful. And because of not knowing what they're getting into, because they didn't take the time to count the cost, to enter in with as much knowledge as possible, not just head knowledge, but experiential knowledge, as we're talking about here, they end up closing their doors. They end up failing because they went into it thinking, I'm just going to go gung-ho and follow my passion. And I think very, very few of those people actually make it work based purely on passion. So if we're serious about being successful in your venture to run a coffee bar, I think getting experience in the coffee industry, if you can, is something that you should pursue. Again, I sometimes recommend experience for people specifically because sometimes they've been a little too flippant about opening a coffee bar, or a little bit too assumptive about the success of whatever formula they think is going to bring in the money and the profitability. And I say, I think it would be a good idea for you to pull some bar shifts, get a part-time job, figure out how to do that for just a few months. Really, if we're talking about just the bare minimum, that would at least give you a taste of it and give you a reality check. What I really hope that Keys to the Shop does is not only resource you to be successful in what you're currently doing, but also give you an idea of what you might experience in the shop that you want to open. We need to face reality, because whether we like it or not, it will come up. And if it comes up on our terms, if we face it full on, right from the beginning by getting experience, by counting the cost, by taking our time to do it right, by doing our due diligence, then we're facing the stress on our terms. But when you have to face the stress as a surprise later on, it doesn't turn out so well. And that's why I think so many people fold, is because they had stars in their eyes, but they didn't realize that those stars were actually just comets heading right for them. So do you need experience? Again, yes and no. I think you should. Early success of those who don't have experience does not necessarily equal the best idea. Experience gives you perspective, and it gives you empathy also for those you're going to lead, which is huge for what you end up doing as an owner of a coffee shop and a leader. Empathy and communication is going to be based on how well you can identify with the struggles and the needs of those that you're leading. And with experience, you can do that, I think, a lot better. Realize that it's easier to busy yourself with concepts, vision boards, plans and paper and all this other stuff. It's easy to do because you don't really need to get up early in the morning, clock in, and make coffee. You're making a coffee bar in your head on paper, and then you're building out the bar, but the actual work of doing it has not yet happened. And by having experience, it really changes the ballgame, and it adds nuance to those plans that you're putting together for your bar. Now, like I said, there are some people that succeed with a lack of experience, and sometimes you just don't have the opportunity to work in a coffee bar. But even if you don't have the opportunity to work as a barista at a coffee shop, I think you should take a page from someone like my client, Jackie Wen of Cafe in Kansas City, who on her tour with Miss Saigon, before she became a coffee entrepreneur, was interviewing coffee shop owners as much as she could. You can sit in your coffee shops, you can talk to them, you can talk to owners, get as much information and real nitty-gritty experiential information as you possibly can so that you build up that knowledge of what's in store for you. So be careful when you talk about experience that you don't think, well, I don't have experience and that's fine because lots of people that don't have experience succeed. That doesn't mean that it's automatically going to work for you. You should also be careful of saying that if you have experience, that you will do well because lots of people who have experience also do poorly. And it's not always an indicator that you will succeed. However, experience, I think, is something to pursue when you can, as much as it is up to you. Proceed mindfully, patiently, and well. Get your heart, head, and hands involved as much as you can, and I think you stand a better chance of success in specialty coffee. So I hope that this was a helpful episode for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me, and I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.